I haven't visited Charlie's farm. And when he came to our farm, he knew we were organic. And Charlie is quite a big chap, as you'll notice. And I thought, in this debate, I'm going to struggle to beat him, because he'll just knock me to the ground. But one thing I got him, which he did voluntarily, when he went into a pasture, and I said that this field had been grazed 18 days earlier. I don't know if you remember this, Charlie, but it had been grazed 18 days earlier, and it was already back to the three-leaf growth stage. And Charlie dropped to his knees, which is where the size that he needs to be for me to tackle him. Wake up to clover. That's where we need to be. Even before I was organic, for about 8 years, all our grazing fields received no nitrogen. So I knew that we could produce the same amount of grass without any inorganic N. Clovers drive production through nitrogen production and optimizing summer growth and nutrient density. Including white clover at 1 kilogram per hectare will increase an annual dry matter production by upwards of 1.5 tons per hectare. White clover supplies the equivalent of 150 kilograms of nitrogen per hectare over the season. Red clover will supply the equivalent of 200 kilograms of nitrogen per hectare over the season. A clover sward is higher in protein than grass alone. 34.5% N. If you ordered it today and pay for it in June of next year, will cost you £350 a tonne. .75 kilograms of permanent white clover blend costs you £10.50 to sow 310 seeds per square metre. The same cash would buy you 1.9 kilograms of a top late tetraploid, only giving you 225 seeds per square metre. The white clover will still be there when the tetraploid has packed in. Trials have shown that clover-rich swards will outperform straight ryegrass swards by some 2.75 tonnes per hectare in the same management system. Missed a sheet somewhere. Red clover has the advantage of being deep rooting, benefiting soil structure, organic matter, and a food source for pollinators. All our swards are clover rich. We have finishing cattle which are averaging on a daily weight gain of 1.4 kilograms a day through the grazing season. Our grazing platform is carrying 900 kilograms of live weight per hectare. Clover is the driving force of our system, a fraction of the cost of using inorganic N.
Perfect timing.
Clover drives our system and any system.
From Poppy's kind introduction, I have been outed as a nitrogen dependent, and I confess I even used some of my favourite white product this week. However, I am dependent, as are you, as is everything we grow and everything we rear. Nitrogen is a core component of amino acids, genetic materials, and is an essential nutrient for sustaining life on Earth. Now, I should probably just sit down now rather than, as my daughters put it, drone on about my grass obsession, but I would really like to thank Giles for his personal and emotional views on organic farming. Obviously, one of my better kept secrets is I was also an organic farmer and still to this day use many of the principles we learned rearing stock and growing crops organically. When my wife Gilly and I bought our first farm in Aberdeenshire, we knew it was an incredibly good heart. It was therefore a relatively easy decision to take the organic conversion payments and benefit from the organic premiums. However, the organic payments soon came to an end. Beef and lamb had to be sold conventionally when the organic premiums dropped, and of course the bank still needed repaying. Thankfully, as Giles has pointed out, there are many sources of nitrogen available to us, and some are even advocated free to use to the farmer. Unfortunately, mineralisation is limited by soil temperature. Even with healthy soil biota, the correct pH, a lack of compaction, 60% of water-filled pore spaces in the soil, mineralisation is 5 times higher at the tropical temperatures of 27 degrees centigrade as it is at 4. Clover only starts growing when temperatures heat 8 degrees, as opposed to grass at 5. In the correct conditions, Giles is entirely correct that nitrogen can fix significant amounts of nitrogen. Unfortunately, like mineralisation, the quantity of N fixed by clover swards depends on a number of limiting factors. These again include soil temperature, solar radiation, clover content of the sward, variety, health, size, and species of clover. A number of research projects in recent years have shown some very positive steps at how we can reduce nitrogen. The main challenge remains how we can do this in the spring, before mineralisation and sequestration are even possible, and really too much potential yield is lost. This is why Moore Park is now advocating a 150 kilogram nitrogen strategy with 100 kilograms of N, or 66% of it, being spread before our equivalent of the 5th of June, when responses are highest at 10 to 15 kilograms of dry matter for every kilogram of nitrogen spread. Simply, if we are to only be reliant on natural sources of nitrogen pre-Magic Day, we are hugely limiting our grassland production in spring, which in turn affects the whole rest of the year. Globally, grass-based farmers have long looked at artificial nitrogen as an accelerant from growth, and most international farm management account packages analyse nitrogen usage not as a fertiliser, but as a feed. The reasoning, again, is very simple and thought-provoking. Throughout the year, the seasonal response of nitrogen varies. Individual farmers can choose to vary the amount of nitrogen spread depending on their feed available and their economic return. Personally, we see huge benefits in starting to kick off spring growth by applications of nitrogen and phosphate and graze over 2 tonnes a hectare by the end of April. Fields grazed twice by Magic Day always leads the charge on annual production. I believe that rapid spring growth of mixed species swards drives roots deep into the soft soils, helping alleviate compaction, opening up soils to allow plants and soil biota to scavenge nutrients. This activity helps lift and maintain soil temperatures, assisting with mineralisation and sequestration. Globally, it has been shown that farm profitability, resilience, and genuine regeneration are intrinsically linked to tonnes of dry matter utilised. This has recently been calculated in the UK to be worth just under £400 a hectare for each additional tonne grown. Land remains our most expensive asset and our most restrictive one. It is therefore essential for our industry to make this sweat. Optimising production of nutrient-dense, human-edible protein is a great place to start and is undoubtedly nitrogen-dependent on every level. Thank you. Might stay answer questions.
5 minutes, excellent, thank you. Yeah, I'll put myself up. Yes, so as Giles is the first speaker, this is your opportunity to challenge Giles with a question or a comment.
So I was very lucky to attend the Moore Park Research Day recently, and really one of the standout things for me was that they showed that healthy, rapidly growing mixed species swards kicked off in the spring in a conventional system are actually better at utilising surplus organic N produced later on in the year through sequestration and mineralisation. So I suppose my question to organic farmers is, how do organic farmers actually reduce the leaching?
Well, first of all, I would say that we have found that our clover swards will start moving at between 5 and 6 degrees and not at 8 degrees. Mm-hmm. The clover is growing at 5 degrees. And therefore, you know, when we come into a spring, we are on our, you know, we are on our fields as quick as our neighbours who are putting nitrogen on. And, you know, but maybe we're covering a wee bit more grass through the winter, but we're finding that we can be in grazing along with, you know, the same period of time as our neighbours are, and we don't seem to have any restriction on that spring growth period.
And how do organic farmers stop leaching in the back end of the year?
Because if we keep keep the covers a wee bit higher, then we're making use of the available product, and because we've got a more organic matter there, then through the porosity of the ground, then that water is passing and is not picking up any of the minerals that are there, and it's basically clean water that is getting away, and the nitrogen therefore is not leaching as it might in a system where we didn't have that ground porosity.
Mm-hmm. And organic farming soils have higher organic matter, because that would go completely against what John just said earlier on, and most of the studies that Moore Park have shown that actually conventionally sown crops that drill further into the ground are better at sequestering nitrogen than organic crops.
Yeah, you know, that's you know, there is that, but you know, but you know, you just got to go with the system that is in front of you and how your farm reacts, and you know, we can grow the grass, we can grow the stock, and you know, fair enough, we are, you know, we have a higher organic matter, but therefore you know, we've got higher carbon sequestration as well, so we're helping on that front.
Yeah. Okay. So from your own figures, speaking about nitrogen earlier on at £350 a tonne, I quite like that contact actually, which would be quite useful to me. But anyway, if artificial nitrogen in that figure has a capital return on capital of 4 to 1, what does the organic premium have to be to actually offset the reduced carrying capacity of an organic farm?
Why should there be a reduced carrying capacity? We are actually carrying more stock than we would have been. Well, as many, we have not reduced our stock numbers in the time that we have been organic. You know, we've been organic now for 25 years, and we have, you know, our stock numbers or our live weight per hectare is actually more than it was pre-organic days.
But then you said you weren't spreading any nitrogen on your grazing fields before you turned organic, so
no.
It wasn't conventional either.
Well, we weren't conventional, but we were still using grazing nitrogen for barley and for silage.
Okay.
You know, can we still go forward and justify making use of chemicals to put on our land that then could either get into waterways or, and in some instances, you know, carry through, you know, into stock and causing problems that way?
Well, I think this is a responsible nitrogen protocol, which really means that we're spreading the majority on in fast-growing crops in early on in the year. So I think the Moore Park one that's come out recently, which is showing that we're putting on 66%, you know, before the 6th of June, is a really good one to take. For the rest of the year, we're only putting on 9 kilograms of nitrogen for every one. And actually what we're seeing is where we're putting on that very small amount of nitrogen onto even clover crops. So we grow straight red clovers, white clovers, plantains, chicories, everything, that actually we're just getting a better response. It just needs that little bit of tickle to keep it going.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think the responsible use of nitrogen is very key in the whole thing. I've been really pushing quite hard with questions to everybody today about how much tons of grass you're producing and all the rest of it. And I find it fascinating. And, you know, we're growing 18 tons of grass now.
Aye, but then you've got a dairy system that you're needing to do that.
No, I think we could have done it in beef and sheep, and I just wish I knew what I knew now when I was beef and sheep, and then I might not have to build a parlour.
Well, we're striving all the time, and as an industry, we're striving all the time to get more production. And we would love to be able to increase our production, and I think you're probably in the right area, Charlie, for doing that.
Yeah.
You're in that on that west coast. When you see some of the figures, even from organic farms in Ireland, like the amount of production they're getting, if we could get anywhere near that, it's one of the things I would like to do is to go to Ireland and just see what they do, to see how they get this amount of grass, because we certainly need to be able to lift this tonnage,
I think it's absolutely incredible what you can do when you get your soils balanced and your soil biota working. I think that's absolutely key to nitrogen response. And I think one of the farms that we're farming on now, when I first went there, I was told it's for Blackie twins only. You'll never grow any grass on it, and that's what we're milking cows off now.
Yeah. Well, I know, when we went to our farm, I was told, the previous tenant in the farm told me that that if we didn't get a shower of rain every year, the farm would be burnt up. And actually, the year that I looked over the farm, every field was like this. It was just brown, And it had been a very dry summer. He'd made 160 acres of silage. The whole thing was just burnt up.
Sounded like it needed a dose of nitrogen.
No, but then a couple of 3 years summers after that, we getting quite a dry summer, and we're actually at the bottom of the valley, so all my neighbours pass us if they're going into town or whatever. And one of the neighbours further up the valley came in one day, and he says, "Giles," he says, "have you been getting a shower of rain?" And I says, "We haven't had any rain for whatever it was, 6 or 7 weeks or whatever." But he says, "You're greener than anyone." And he says, he says, previous to you being here, if I came down the valley, in a dry spell, then this was the farm that was burnt up. He says, what is what is your answer, to that? And I said, well, it's very easy. We're not putting nitrogen on our grass. Therefore, in order to get nutrients, our roots are going deeper. And when they're going deeper, they're getting moisture, and we're staying greener longer. And that, we see that now. Even in the drought there we had in May and June, all our neighbours were starting to burn up. The brown patches were, we went on top of our hill, you could see around all our neighbours had brown fields, and we were still a green oasis.
I think that's just set stocking, isn't it? Because your roots go down what plants you've got above it. So with rotational grazing, we get forage above the ground, we get depth of roots, and that's really what's helping us with drought. So,
well, it is. We've seen that. We've kind of changed our system this year after the big drought. Through last summer, and certainly the rotational grazing, has turned our business around. It really has. We've been doing that for 12, 13 years. And
I'm not going to argue on that, Giles, honestly, I promise.
Yeah.
Great. I will open up to questions and challenges from the floor. Are there any? Graham Lofthouse here.
Charlie, you challenged Giles on the loss of nitrogen through leaching. What percentage of nitrogen in your 250 kilo system are you utilising? How much are you leaching?
So that's from Graham Lofthouse. What percentage of your 250 kilo system are you utilising or are you leaching?
I didn't use 250 kilograms of nitrogen.
Matt Tile?
Charlie, on using nitrogen, are you affecting the fungal activity in the soils by possibly destroying them, and are you actually using more lime to keep the pH up by the nitrogen as well?
So we won't have a grass field in the farm that's less than 6.5 pH, and to be honest, I don't understand why anybody would. It's only at 6.5 that you're really getting 100% efficiency with NP and K, so it doesn't really matter if you're conventional or organic. And I would challenge Alec on that quite seriously, especially on that low ground, what he's speaking about. So once you get your 6.5 pH, you're doing everything you can possibly do to help your soil biota. I think, the heady temperatures of soil that we're all speaking about here, we topped out at 17.5 degrees centigrade in the southwest this year. Up in this part of the world, I don't know, John, what were you at with your? So 14.5 soil biota is just coming out of hibernation. So, we've got a lot of work to do on soil biota, but the main thing we can do is actually stop kicking them in the nuts by not giving them the pH, to work efficiently and effectively. I'm amazed every time we go onto a farm and take it on how low the pHs are. And every time we've done it, 250 acre farm, the sort of the pH has been less than 1 acre. It's just madness. And it's stuff our grandparents knew about.
I would certainly agree with that. We're trying to keep our pHs around 6.5 as well, because it's just what works for us. And in an organic system, what we're finding is if we're keeping our pHs up at 6.5, then we're finding that the P's and K's tend to nearly look after themselves.
Absolutely. And clover just doesn't like it less than that. You see it as a single strand plant in blanket.
I think you use probably more lime because you're using nitrogen. You have to use more lime to keep your pH up.
Well, I think it would depend on what type of nitrogen you were spending, whether it was acidification or not. So we use a huge amount of slurry.
Just because not everyone at the back.
Yep.
So Matt Tile from Jedburgh is questioning whether you're having to use more lime because of the acidification effect of the high nitrogen usage.
Well, I don't think so. I think if I was using urea fertilizer and things like that, absolutely. I think if we're using kinder sources of CAN and things like that, then we're not having the same acidification point. So that's what we're being careful with. Yeah.
It's the rainfall that creates most of the acidification, not the mineral nitrogen or even mineralization or organic matter into ammonical nitrogen. It's actual rainfall that creates most of our acidity in our soil.
So that's the rainfall creates more of the loss in pH rather than acidification.
More rainfall you have, it's just that purely that washing effect of rain going through your soil. Topsoil. Just Charlie, you travel. People are saying you're high nitrogen, but you're not actually high nitrogen.
I use twice what John uses. I use twice what John uses, that's it. Nobody's asked me that. My average on my dairy platform this year is 65 kilograms of N. I used to be at 330.
So it's not, and pretty much it seems what you're doing is you're utilising fixation, through clover.
Yeah, absolutely.
Topping it up then with some mineral N, which seems like we shouldn't, I suppose, get into this thing about that you use any mineral N that you're more likely to lose more nitrogen through leaching, because in effect, whether it's organic, whether you're fixing it organically through clover or whether you're putting it on in a bag, you have the same amount of nitrogen in the system. So they're not finding that there's any less leaching or using 0 N with clover than they're
I think the scary one that Moore Park was finding actually is there were more leaching on organic farms than there was on conventional because of the root structures pushed down by conventional systems in the spring of the year.
Any further questions or comments? Yeah, Stuart?
How expensive does nitrogen have to be not to be too expensive?
I mean, at 65 kilos, it doesn't matter what it is. I haven't missed grazing cows on the 14th of February for 10 years. If nitrogen goes to £1,000 a tonne, we will still be spreading 14 kilograms of N. It is, there is nothing cheaper than me to put grass in a paddock in front of a cow. Yeah. And organic premiums at 7% at the moment, just not a chance, Yeah.
Any other questions or comments from the floor? Jock Gibson at the back.
I'm probably going to sound like a really irritating ex-smoker.
Yes, well done, Jock.
Probably 2 people in this panel, at least 1 beer each, for giving me the confidence to give up using artificial nitrogen. We don't grow any less grass than we used to. We are grazing just as long in the shoulder months as we used to. And I got to take my wife on a skiing holiday this year because I didn't have a fertilizer bill. I'm irritated at the industry that they make us reliant on this stuff, and I'm irritated at myself for being so gullible for so long.
So I think it's to do with soil temperature. So I can grow grass in February, right? But mineralization and clover don't start working. So I've got to put nitrogen on to do that. So for me to churn out a cow with a CFP of 850 to 1,000 pounds each, I need to grow 2 tons of grass before the end of April. That is before sequestration and before mineralization happens. It is not possible without nitrogen fertilizer.